I've had Janome sewing machines with start-stop buttons since about 1990. There are a couple of really good use cases for them. One is bobbins. I don't like sitting there wasting my time winding a bobbin when I could go and do something else. The second is buttonholes, and it saves you on one of the most common errors that people make with buttonholes. And finally, there's a group of people for whom a foot control is just not a valid way to operate the machine. And for them, they can sew with the start-stop button as well. The machine is plugged in and now it's turned on. There is no foot control plugged into the machine at the moment, so I can't operate it using the foot control. If I had the foot control in, that would override the start-stop button. So in order to use the start-stop button, you have to disengage the foot control by taking it out of the machine. Just got the machine in standard stitching, and I'm going to wind a bobbin. So I've put the thread in, I'm doubling it over as is my wont, and I do that so that it's a little bit stiffer. I can put the thread from the inside to the outside onto the bobbin winding apparatus and then click that across. Now the standard way to start the bobbin winding would be to press the foot control, but since I don't have the foot control in, I'm going to press the start-stop button. You can see it's going very slow. The machine is actually working out how fast to go by this. So if I put it fast, it goes a lot faster. At this point I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut off that thread close to the bobbin. I can now turn it back on with the start-stop button, and I can run it quickly. This machine will turn itself off when it gets to the end of winding the bobbin, and it does that because it recognises that it's getting harder to turn the bobbin winder. The electronic ones don't do that. They are waiting for you to come along and press the stop button. You'll hear them going slower and slower, but they continue to whir. This one, however, very nicely tells me that it's completed. And it's now ready to be pressed to start again, so you can tell that because it's green. I can click it over to the left, lift, and cut it off. And that's how you wind a bobbin with most of the Janome and Elna machines that have a start-stop button, but not all. If you've got an embroidery machine and it's an embroidery only machine, those ones do not have the slider on, and the way to change the speed of the bobbin winding is by going into the settings. Also on the high-end machines, they tend now to have a separate bobbin winding motor, and there is a separate button which has a picture of a bobbin on it. So you don't use the start-stop button, you use the button that has got the picture of a bobbin on it. To do a buttonhole with the start-stop button, set everything up for your buttonhole exactly the same as normal, with the button in the back and the lever pulled down. Everything's exactly the same, except I haven't got the foot control plugged in, and then I just press the button. The speed is controlled by the controller. I can make it go very slow if I'm worried about anything, or I can run it fast. And that's it. When I'm teaching people how to use these machines, I like to get them to do buttonholes with the start-stop button. And the reason is pretty simple. If you do it with the foot control, there is a very good chance that you will stop before the buttonhole is complete, And when that happens, you move to a new place and it won't start doing a new one because it's still trying to finish off the last one. What you need to do is make sure you do the entire buttonhole and let the machine finish. In my case, this machine will tell me that it's completed. A lot of the electronic machines will do the lock stitch to finish off, and then they'll beep at you to say, I'm done, I can start another one now. This is an older Janome machine, and the start-stop button works a little bit differently when you're just using it to sew. I have got it just set up on a straight stitch, that's all it is. On this machine, I press start, it does a few stitches slowly, and then it is determined by the slider how quickly it will go. When I'm ready to finish, I just stop. If you have stopped a couple of stitches early, just use the needle up down button and do those extra couple of stitches that you want. It is considerably easier to use the needle up down button to do a few stitches than to try and do it with the start stop. If you want to use one of the stitches that has a lock stitch at the beginning of it, just choose that stitch and press start and off it goes. So it did its lock stitch and then it began, and once again I can change the speed with the slider. If I hit stop, it stops exactly where it is. When I hit start, it keeps going. It will not recognise that it needs to do another lock stitch to start unless I do a lock stitch to finish. At least one of my newer high-end machines operates a little bit differently, in that when you hit the start button to start, the machine will go slowly as long as you've got it depressed. When you let go, it then starts to work on the slider. When you get towards the end of what you're doing, press that start-stop button again and the machine will keep going slowly until you let it go. So the actual button becomes like a beginning and an end in slow stitching, so you've got a bit more chance to adjust to things. It's worthwhile taking the time to learn how the start-stop button works, even if it's only for winding bobbins and potentially doing buttonholes. If you need it, it's there and it can be really valuable. Hope you've learned something this week, and I'll see you next time.